Wi-Fi, load shedding, and connectivity. So let's just wait for this to start. Started. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're on the 17th of May. We've got the week of the 22nd, which is next week, class that week. We have the week of the 29th of May. And that is it, because the week after that, which is the 5th of June, there is no class and there is submission of the F2s on the Friday, the 9th of June. And so if we're having this issue with being online, connectivity, people not being able to get here, what we need to do is kind of take the pressure off of the online classes, the live classes, in other words. So recording them helps. And so once the class is done, to upload the recording to Cole Campus. So Rob, I need you to WeTransfer me this file at the end of the session so that I can convert it to a YouTube link and post it on Cole Campus. And beyond that, because load shedding and connectivity and network issues create such pressure on the live online classes, it's the reason for the video stuff and stuff that helps you that during the week you're online, you can, when you do have power and connectivity, go access content asynchronously that is going to help you. That's kind of the idea. Tried to solve this problem doing the Cole Campus discussion board stuff. It didn't work. So actually the way is just like videos, content, like, okay, you couldn't make it to class, but you've got the whole week. There's stuff there that will help you. Speaking of which, I want to share my screen. Why is it being weird though? I don't want to share Microsoft Whiteboard, screen window, or tab. I don't want to do entire screen. There we go. Share. And share system audio. All right. So is this happening? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. This document, it's called HIMM4 F2 question 1.1 and 1.2 and 1.3 and 1.4, answer templates and marking criteria. You'll find it on Cole Campus week 12, as well as Cole Campus okay, so Cole Campus under modules under week 12, it's there, and then also then there are videos about 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3 that take you through all of this. The idea is you're using these templates and examples to help you answer the questions. And then it's got how everything will be marked so you can target your responses to do as well as you possibly can do. And then 1.4 is the new one from today, which Rob did the work on. You're going to see here now for the first time, but essentially it's the same principle you're following for question 1, right? Where you make a recommendation. 1.1 is very broad general recommendations. It can kind of be anything. 1.3 is adjacencies, and 1.2 is the business model and value chain stuff. Now, 1.4 is targeted advertising and performance-based advertising, but I have made a very key adjustment here, just in the interest of kindness and what everybody's lives are like, to say or because we still have F3, we still have S1, like, believe me, we're covering enough stuff. So this little shift is to say in this answer, you no longer have to talk about both because there are two different things. And so to have two different things in the same answer and covering them both is like a bit hectic. So this is what this template looks like. You haven't seen it yet. Rob has seen it because he did it. Thank you very much, man, by the way. Then, all right, recommendation for targeted advertising. The recommendation is to target the advertising around the community. So this whole answer in all of these columns is about that. The recommendation in the example is the station should take advantage of its asset, that is, its passionate and skilled workforce of journalists and hosts who love telling stories about the community. So the recommendation is to maximize this asset to target community-based content with their advertising and to tailor ads to suit the community, which the hosts have a passion for and an understanding of already. That's the idea. This is pure branding gold. Because it's what every brand should strive for. Think of what you guys discussed in class about a brand like Apple. Okay, so that's the recommendation. Then the suggestion on how to approach the station and the ultimate goal, which is to stay in business. There's a prompt here, use your creativity to come up with ideas and then back those ideas up with theory. Love that. And so the assistant station manager, which is you in this assessment, should formulate a plan for using the journalists and hosts to come up with creative ideas that target the community. Again, here's this word that keeps consistency in the world of targeted advertising, which this 1.4 is all about. The community using advertising. Have a meeting with them and say, guys, I'm sure you know, I'm always like with guys, like I say it all the time and I'm like, is it inclusive? Do people have an issue with it? There was a whole thing on Survivor, I remember, where the host was like always saying, come on in guys, and they had to change it. And it's like, that too woke, or is it fine? I don't even know anymore. I think it's fine. Let us know if it's not fine or something. But anyway, the pitch here, we need to adapt. Exceptionally talented and creative. And the way that Rob has done this is because this is targeted advertising that is targeting the community as a focal point. Whatever your choice is, it might be the community, that's fine. Please just don't reproduce the same exact stuff. Obviously, that will be bad, but then yeah, the idea here is that because what you're targeting with the advertising is community content and reaching that community and reaching those people, and the reason for that is because the brief tells you that the hosts know the community well and are passionate about it. But this idea is a good one, where it says that the idea would be, let's hear from you, let's hear from the host. It makes sense, obviously, if your targeted advertising is all about reaching the community that is around the station, the station services. It makes sense for the pitch to be, let's hear then your ideas, right? There's a consistency there. So that makes a lot of sense, rather than it in this case being like, this is all about me. So that is a good approach. And yeah, the point being, and that's made in column 1, is this, that the hosts already love telling stories about the community. And this is all a good answer because it bounces off that. And that's what we're assessing. Like, can you work within the system, maximize the things that exist, solve for any pushback that you know you might get, It's really when it comes to managing yourself, that's what you're learning here, is like how to go about things, what ideas to have, how to pitch them in a real way, given the parameters that you're working under. All of the marking criteria for question 1 deals with that. Then column 3 is about, as always, the benefit of the suggestion using research beyond the station and its parameters. So this is a really nice example that brings in theory that Rob has done, that talks about, once again, communities and the importance of humanity and communities that will distinguish brands in the future. There's a match there between what the source is saying about the
Firstly, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's disappeared for a minute.
Oh, sorry. I was saying that there's a connection between the source, which talks about how community is important in advertising and branding, and the example idea, which is also about that the advertising should be targeted around the community. So for your answer, you can pick community as the central thing to work around, because from the brief it says this, and maximizing that, or whatever it is that you choose, there should be a through line where that idea, whether it's community or something else, keeps coming up. So this last column is saying, when you do the research, it says targeting community is a good idea. It's a valuable thing to do. It's something that this source tells us people are striving for in a technology satiated society. So therefore, if we target our ads based on community, it's a good idea. Great. And then as this relates to MyFM, connection to other human beings. That's this whole pitch. That's this whole idea about running the advertising in this way. It maintains focus on targeted advertising as the focal point of this table for 1.4. The example here is the success with this strategic move is that it could be used to promote a strong connection between MyFM and the community, which could then become a selling point for targeted advertising. Okay. Great. For example, this is what a prospective advertiser on the station could be told using a live read or a station advert. When you advertise with MyFM, you're connecting to the heart of the community. Okay. Great idea. There's a note here on why this is a good answer. It's bringing in the idea, it's bringing theory to match with your idea about community. But there should be a source there for the Maslow hierarchy of needs idea. You would maybe look at it and go, it says loyalty. Maybe that's not the best use of word in context because it's going to take you to other places. And that's nice as well. This note's about no answer is ever perfect. Your best is enough. This is what you're targeting. It really is, you'll recognize this from the other marking criteria that we're going to be using for 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Same thing. I have limited it to just do this once. One recommendation about targeted advertising, one recommendation if you want to about what's the other thing? Performance-based advertising. It's a whole other thing. Like that is about, depending on how well the ads perform and are watched, will determine your strategy of if you're going to keep going with that kind of advertising or not. It's a whole different world of things that is, for some reason, asked in the same question as a whole other world of things. But that's why I've got the or. And that's why I'm saying for 1.4, just do this once for 1.4, because you still have to do question 2, you still have to do question 3, you still have to do research methods, you still have to do research project. Like, life is hectic. But the way that it's marked, there's marks for each table, right? Or each table is covered. So recommendation 1 take that out. Basically, it's one recommendation you have to do. 0, not done. 1 for this whole table, 1 out of 4. The recommendation is impossible. It's insensitive to the parameters of the MyFM system, and it's not convincing. So this is column 1 that you fill in. Is it possible to do? Then columns 1 and 2, is it within the parameters? This answer is, because it's maximizing the whole community awareness and value that is already there, and you're just saying this is there, we're just going to build our targeted advertising around it. And then there's also a note in each of these for have you mentioned and are applying targeted advertising, which if you look at the answer, the example answer here, this whole section is about, yes, community, but remember we want to have our advertising targeted to the community. Every column mentions it somewhere, and if you aren't mentioning it, then you're going to lose marks. Here, creative ideas that target the community. Column 1, same thing, targeted advertising. Let's look at the full marks. Your recommendation must be actionable, must contribute to turning the business around. The example answer does that. It is sensitive to the parameters of the MyFM system. The reason it is sensitive to them is in column 1, this quote that's from the brief, where it's talking about the employees there and their whole community vibe. So that's covered. And then the benefit section, which is where you have your sources in this final column, must be convincing. The source is credible and relevant, always that. And targeted advertising is used. So that's for 1.4. Rob has done one, or has started one and is almost finished one for question 2 on inertia. So this week, we'll finalize that, we'll upload that. We're almost there when it comes to updated criteria. Question 2 will be done. What will remain is then how question 3 will be marked. Questions 2 and 3 are, I think, longer answers. So I think there, a table format is not going to be the relevant thing like it was for question 1. But there will be updates on those soon. You've got, like I said, this week, next week, and then the week after that, the week after that, and then it's submission week where there's no class. But if in that week leading up to the Friday, which is the hand-in, there's more support that you need, please let us know. Can you still hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Chris.
Cool. Because yeah, my meeting things is looking weird this side after stopping sharing. But I have another meeting now I need to go to, so I'm going to hand over to Rob. You're going to keep discussing about where you guys are with the assessments, discussion-based class. Keep that going. Rob, please send me the WeTransfer of the recording when you're done. I actually don't know how to leave this meeting. It's looking like really weird here.
Chris,
anyway,
do you want me? Do you want me to send you the WeTransfer, or should I just upload it to YouTube and send you the link?
Oh yeah, do that rather than yeah.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Chris. I'll catch up with you later.
All right. Catch up later.
Thanks. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, guys. So whilst Chris is leaving, welcome to Ye Few But Faithful. Onelena, lovely to see you. Michelle, lovely to see you digitally. I am very, 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 very disappointed that SRC is not with us today, and Dennis and all the other nice people, but that's fine. I will focus on you guys and focus on chatting with you guys. Okay, so guys, what we're going to do today, I have done a marking, an answer, a template, and a rubric. Well, I've started the rubric for question 2, but Chris needs to first look at it and approve it. So I can go through bits and pieces of it with you, but I wanted to discuss, you know, the assignment with you. I'm moving along because I think we've got pretty much question 1 in the bag. Now, question 1's really important because it is worth 50 marks, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I need to just double check that on my question paper, but it's a lot. So if you focus a lot on question 1, that's a good thing, and it will help you immensely with your assignment. Okay, so that's very good. So Michelle, you've got lots to do because you've got 2 assignments due, and it's very hectic for you, but be strong. Okay, yes, guys, then section B is 30 marks. So question 2 is 20 marks, and question 3 is 10 marks, and then of course you have your 20 marks for your technical. So that's good. Okay, so what I wanted to do with you guys is I want to go through question 2 with you, and then we're going to take it from there. Okay, so this question is technological change, specifically around inertia. And I know that you guys battle with connectivity, so you can either send me messages in WhatsApp, or you can send me messages in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and share with me if you have airtime and it's not too much of a hassle for you guys. So what I wanted to speak to you about is there is this great quote by Kuhn that inertia is what stops successful existing organizations from benefiting from the opportunities presented by new technologies. So I wanted to ask you before we jump off, what do you guys think that means? Michelle, you were very vocal in class, so it would be great if you could be vocal again. I don't know if you can be vocal. I'm not sure if your airtime situation and your connectivity situation allows you to. On Lena, it would be great to hear from you as well, if possible. Otherwise, we will just have to have the discussion via chat. So please let me know, and then we take it from there.
Yeah, I can talk. It's just about the canteen, so the noise is on and off like the connectivity, but I'll be able to like answer when you ask the questions.
Okay, so is the canteen's connectivity best? Is that where is the connectivity best there?
No, I'm using my own Wi-Fi.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Okay, so Michelle, so the question is, okay, what do you understand from this quote from King? Inertia is what stops successful existing organizations from benefiting from the opportunities presented by new technologies.
I'm not sure about it, but I think I just have to find the question paper and then answer after.
Sorry, say that again, please.
I just have to find the question paper. It's here somewhere, and then I'll answer the question.
Okay. Okay, cool. Lena, are you able to speak, or can you send me some information via the chat?
Hi, Rob.
Hey, Lena, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Could you kindly tell me the page where you're reading from? I better understand if I'm reading, honestly. I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand the statement.
No problems whatsoever. Cool. Page 4 of the assignment.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't know. Can we say that it's, I don't know, according to my understanding, by reading this, what he's basically saying is that companies don't get to learn or to grow, right, if they don't use like new technologies that are introduced, they don't adjust to the ever-changing environment.
Yes, that's a very good answer. That's cool. So I agree with you that the thing is, you know, they're not benefiting from opportunities. Because remember, think of it like this. There's an old saying in English, I'm sure you guys have heard it, your parents say it before. When one door closes, another door opens, or when a door closes, a window opens. So when we have changes in technology, which lead to changes in the way we consume ideas or products or the way we use things, okay, then what invariably happens is new opportunities are created. Okay, but now specifically in life we call, so think of it like this. Let's say you have a rock at the top of a hill, okay, and the rock is at the top of the hill, but there's a little bit of a bump before you get to the edge of the hill. And you push that rock because you want to push it down the hill, but the rock won't go down the hill. It's stuck there because of the bump. Okay, so you have to push the rock a little bit in order to get over that bump, and then it'll roll down the hill. Okay, or like they say, you know, the snowball effect. If you roll a snowball down a hill, it also gathers more snow and becomes bigger. I've never actually seen that because I've only ever seen snow once in my life in Germany. Oh, and a couple of times in Joburg, but obviously we don't get a lot of snow, you know, in Joburg, so it wasn't very easy to see the snowball effect. But in a nutshell, inertia is the whole idea of, we call it, think of it like your assignments. Okay, when we first get going with assignments, initially it's very sluggish and we don't want to do it and it's hard, but once we get into it, it feels like it gets easier. Okay, so that's exactly the same principle. We have this feeling of we don't want to do it, and we don't get started. It's about momentum and inertia. But once you get going and you're rolling down the hill, then you feel like you have got more going. So that is pretty much what King is referring to here, by saying that inertia is what stops successful organizations from benefiting from the opportunities presented by new technology. So they don't grab the opportunities and take advantage of the opportunities, and that is what causes them then to become irrelevant. So we discussed examples in class. Okay, we said, where's Nokia today? Nokia is nowhere. And where is you know, BlackBerry today? BlackBerry is nowhere. And that's because Samsung and Apple have been far more successful in embracing new technologies and in emerging technologies. I mean, it was Steve Jobs who got the idea, well, not him, but obviously the people he works with, him too, you know, the idea. I mean, we don't have 15 years ago, when you guys were very little, the iPod was all the rage. It was this huge, massive invention, and people had this digital thing, and it was like it was an MP3 player. And, you know, people would put these earbuds in their ears, and they would listen to music on this little device, and it was everywhere. It was all over the show. Quite a lot in big cities in South Africa, like Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, but not that much in the rest of the country, and also Pretoria, you know. So, but anyway, but not that much in other places. But very, very, very big, and especially the US. But then what happened was Steve Jobs realized that, and the people at Apple realized that if we create a device where you can combine a camera and a music listening device like a radio and a phone and internet, etc., all onto one device, how easy it would be to communicate and just have all the things that you wanted at your fingertips. Now, back in the old days when they first had cell phones, all the cell phone could do was make calls. That was it. Or send SMSs. That was it. Okay, and the very, very, very first cell phones couldn't send SMSs either. They could just make calls. That was it. Nowadays, your cell phone can do virtually everything, okay? The idea of having a camera attached to a cell phone was unheard of. And remember, Annalena, you specifically said in class today, you said, Apple seems to anticipate, know what it is that I want even before I want it. And that is the genius of having, you know, a really, really good product that innovates and continues to grow with time. Now, BlackBerry didn't do that. BlackBerry was revolutionary at a time. Everybody was BB, oh, BBME, oh, BBME, oh, BBME. That was the whole thing. I mean, I lived on BlackBerry as well. Oh, what happened to my phone? Oh, sorry, I thought I thought my computer died. Anyway, okay, so that was very clever the way they did that. And of course, Nokia, the Nokia tune, that was invented by Nokia. That was, you know, if you heard people saying that, you would know that it was a cell phone ring. So that they were one of the very first companies, but because they didn't innovate and stay with it, they didn't have the inertia, or they had inertia, they had resistance to change. They didn't innovate, and maybe they did. What King says is that they didn't innovate enough. So you can still innovate, but you didn't innovate enough. I mean, I also, just to contextualize it for South Africa, so I see Andre de Ruyter's been chatting, and he's got a new book coming out, or he's got a new book that's already out, and so on and so forth. Now that is very quick off the mark, like Harry and Meghan with Spare, or Harry with Spare. But what he says in that book is Eskom is not the way to solve South Africa's electricity crisis. The way forward is renewable energy sources, which, you know, we have to create and generate ourselves. We have to generate our own electricity. I think it's where it's headed. Getting off the grid and, you know, generating your own power. Now, of course, government is working against that, and they're saying, no, we need to go nuclear. We could go nuclear, but nuclear is $1 trillion deal, and of course, everybody wants to have a finger in the pie, similar to the mess ups that we've got at Medupi and Kusile, which is why we're seeing the load shedding issues. And government itself, you guys may agree or disagree, taking it back to assignment 1, is also not innovating and embracing change, either political or social change, or technological change, and even economic change, which could see them become irrelevant in the future. I don't know how people are going to vote next year, but I certainly am going to think twice about who I vote for, based on the fact that we are sitting with load shedding, which makes my job very difficult. You know, I can't connect with you guys. That makes my job very difficult. Okay, so that's the context, guys. Dennis, welcome. I haven't heard from you. So let's now read the question. I hope you've all got the question paper in front of you. I'm reading from mine. So Kung says, inertia is what stops successful existing organizations from benefiting from the opportunities presented by new technologies. And then the question reads as follows. One can argue that MediaMarkt, www.mediamarkt.co.za, has taken on the challenges of new technologies and did not fall into a state of inertia. With the statement as a backdrop, discuss inertia and its sources in the context of MediaMarkt. Okay, so guys, what I want you to ask you is, now that we've discussed inertia, I would like each of you, please, so Michelle, Onelena, Dennis, give me an example of where you think inertia applies in any organization. We've discussed a couple of examples. So give me an example, either related to MediaMarkt or related to media, or any example where you can see a company or an organization or a service provider that is hamstrung by inertia and is not moving with the times. There's a lovely word in German, Zeitgeist, which means the spirit of the times, literally the ghost of time, the time ghost. Zeit being time and Geist being ghost. So the time ghost. And what we say in English is the Zeitgeist is the spirit of the time. So when we have organizations that don't move with the spirit of the times, they become irrelevant. Think, for example, of a piece of technology like a VCR. Now, you guys probably don't even know what a VCR is. A VCR is a video cassette recorder. You used to put those big clunky tapes into the machine, and a piece of tape would come out and record this magnetic tape that would record the stuff. And they were very easy to break. They were very easy for the tape to get chewed up by the machine, etc., etc., etc. Then, of course, we got DVDs and Blu-ray, which is better. Now, of course, these days we have streaming. Okay, so you can even get laptops now that don't even have CD drives or DVD drives, because we now have streaming. Okay, so I would like each of you, please, to give me an example, your own example of inertia in an organization that's presented in an organization and they've not embraced new technologies, and therefore, we are seeing this company going out of date. By the way, before you do, so to let you know, for example, the internal combustion engine, which is the thing we use for the car, the internal combustion engine was invented by Mr. Benz, Daimler and Benz, like 120 years ago, or something, even more. Okay, and it is really out of date, old technology. However, remember there what you have that comes into play is big money in terms of oil. So OPEC countries or oil producing countries don't want the internal combustion engine to be done away with, because we have the technology to do away with it, because then how are they going to sell their oil? Because oil is a huge revenue spinner for a country like the UAE, where Dubai is the largest and most prominent city. Okay, so how do you justify that in terms of money? So that's another consideration, guys, economics. Okay, because it's really old technology. Okay, so what do you guys think? Give me an example, please, of where you see digital technologies and inertia in companies. Dennis, you want to start? Because we haven't heard from you yet today. I've heard from Michelle and Onelena. Dennis? Dennis, I'm not sure if you can use thing. I know in the past you have issues with your microphone. If you can write me a message. Michelle, do you want to shoot off and give me an example?
Sorry, what was the question?
Can you give me an example of a company that you know, or an organization or a service provider, where you see technology is hampering them from moving forward because they have inertia within their organization?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to get it. I'm coming up blank.
Okay. Do you want to think about an organization? Let me get Onelena to answer. And then do you want to think about one? And then I'd like to hear from you, please, just now. So you want to think about one, and then we can discuss it. We can discuss it more. Cool. Thanks, Onelena.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Rob,
Yes.
do you want a real life example? Because I was thinking off of the top of my head, MyFM. Or do you want like another example of a company that actually exists?
Darling, you know, whilst I've got you on the line, why don't you do both? Why don't you do MyFM first and then do another company off the top of your head that you can think of?
Okay.
Cool.
Do you want me to send you the answers or just tell you what I'm thinking for now with MyFM?
If you can just give me your thinking, that would be great. Thanks.
Okay, so I think in a case of MyFM, as we have discussed before, is that they have an inability to incorporate like new technologies such as online streaming for their radio station and having podcasts and all of those new things that are in their market now that they are not implementing to their radio station.
Okay, very good. Very good. Cool. Sorry, please continue.
I'm trying to think of a company that I can make an example of.
Okay, whilst you're thinking of that, Onelena, I'm going to read what Dennis said. Dennis, thank you so much for sharing. Dennis says, I think a company that was behind on tech was Musica. They should have migrated to digital instead of sitting on selling physical copies. Dennis, I think that's also a great example. That's true. That's why Musica no longer exists. As you know, as part of the Clicks group, and they did try to innovate. They tried to bring in gaming. They tried to sell merchandise, that kind of thing. But unfortunately, you know what? Remember, do you guys know, Dennis or Onelena or Michelle, what are the two biggest expenses of any business? Do you guys know what are the two biggest expenses of any business? Michelle, do you know?
Manufacturing. Depending on the company, if it's a company that manufactures, obviously the raw material to manufacture. But if it's like a retail store, I would say that having warehouses is a very, very big cost. It's a very big cost. And the next thing would be the
Sorry,
inventory.
Michelle, won't you speak a little louder, please? I can't hear you saying what's a very big cost?
Now, if it's something like a retail company or like a distribution company like Pick n Pay and stuff like that, I would say that the biggest cost would be having a warehouse to keep the inventory and also the operating cost.
Good, thank you so much. Good. Okay, operating costs and warehouse costs, thank you. Dennis is saying over here, another example is the SABC. They're still using analog technology to transmit their stuff. They keep extending deadlines to fix this though. And Dennis is also saying he thinks marketing is a big expense and supply. Okay, guys, you know, marketing is a big expense, so supply. Dennis, just to contextualize and take it back to what Michelle said, how do we supply? We need to go through either a factory or a store. So in the case of Musica, which is a great example, one of the biggest expenses for them was rent. Okay, you have to pay big rentals to shopping centers like a Sandton City or an Eastgate or a Cresta, whatever, or Mall of Africa or Menlyn or Gateway or Canal Walk in Cape Town or Bay West Mall in Nelson Mandela Bay, etc. Those are all huge shopping centers that charge very expensive high rentals. So in order for you to be in that shopping center, you have to pay high rentals. That's the first big cost. Okay. Now, if you're Musica and you're not making all that much money from CD sales anymore, from DVD sales anymore, how are you managing to replenish those costs? Okay. On Lena's typing, that's very good to see. I like it. Okay. So the other big expense, let me see what Lena's typing first before I tell you what the other big expense is. I'd say the maxi taxi industry too. Oh, okay, cool. Okay, cool. That's a good point. So they're also not they're also not innovating. Well, I know, guys, that's so true. In terms of Uber, you know, and Bolt and those companies, they've all, you know, put a big crimp in there because they're so expensive. I mean, I used Bolt a lot when I was in Joburg, and I can tell you that, you know, I never ever once used a maxi taxi because they're way too expensive. Way too expensive. Okay, so that's a really good example. Thank you, Lena. Thank you for sharing that. That's your example there. Guys, the other really big expense is people. Okay, so staff. If you have staff in a store, like a Musica, and you've got to pay a store manager and you've got to pay you know, a customer assistant, you've got to pay a cleaner and that kind of thing, that's a huge expense. So your two biggest expenses for any business are usually rent if you don't own the property. And if you do own the property, it's rates and taxes and maintaining the property. Okay, securing the property, you know, making sure people don't steal stuff, making sure it doesn't get damaged, making sure, you know, whatever. Like what we saw last year, the year before last with the riots down in Durbs. Okay, all those warehouses that got burnt and they got ransacked and looted, etc. That was a hell of an expense. They were all insured, but even so, you can imagine the insurance premiums went up after that. Okay, so if you're a Musica and you've got no money coming into the store from your physical sales, then you go out of business. There is a company that I know that was based, they're digital, but they also had a physical store. They closed it down. They said, well, we don't, and now there's also been a resurgence. There are people who are looking for tapes and for vinyl these days. But guys, if you think about it, let's look at the music industry as a very good example, because the music industry is often a harbinger of change. Okay, back in the 50s, if you heard a song on radio and you loved the song and you wanted to hear the song more than once on radio because you wanted to listen to the song again and again and again and again, the only way you could do that is to run down to the record store and buy a copy of the record. And because of that, you then had your record and you can listen to the song again and again and again until your parents told you to shut up and stop playing that song. But that is why you will see, and let's see, Dennis, how good is your knowledge? Lena, how good is your knowledge? Michelle, what is the biggest selling band of all time, or the biggest selling artist of all time? What do you guys think?
I actually listened about this yesterday, but I forgot. It was one. No, it's between the Beatles and someone. but definitely I know if the group is the Beatles.
Cool. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks for contributing. Okay, cool. Dennis says the Beatles and Michael Jackson. Okay, cool. Thank you, Dennis. Guys, what is the best-selling album of all time?
Thriller, Michael Jackson.
Or Elvis. There we go. The Beatles, Michael Jackson, or Elvis. That's what Dennis says in terms of thing. And then Thriller by Michael Jackson. Okay, cool. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, so Dennis, you're right on the money. Okay. MJ Thriller. Okay, Dennis also on the money, and so is Michelle. Well done, and well done on Lena for your insights about the taxi industry. You're 100% correct there. Okay, so the biggest selling band of all time is the Beatles. The second biggest selling band or person of all time is Elvis, and the third biggest selling person of all time is Michael Jackson. Okay, and the biggest selling album of all time is Thriller. Correct. Now let's have a look. The Beatles were in the 60s. Michael Jackson had his peak in the 80s and 90s, and Elvis was big in the 50s and 60s and a bit in the 70s, but he died in 1977. Okay, so what do we know about the technologies that were available at that time for music? How did you consume music in the 50s and 60s and the 70s and the 80s? It was, because remember, Thriller became big in 1983, 84. The CD only was released in 84. So Michael Jackson made most of his sales from records, LPs, or tapes. Now, you could tape a tape from tape to tape in those days, and Michael Jackson started seeing that in terms of Thriller. But when CDs came about, then it became a completely new, and actually CDs helped the music industry because everybody said, oh, well, tape is old, record is old, it's all by the new catalog and by CDs. It was a massive, huge spike in sales for the music industry. But then, of course, it all died when we started having Napster and Pirate Bay and file sharing and that kind of thing. I almost said load shedding, file sharing and that kind of thing. So guys, you can see we will never have, nobody will ever, Michael Jackson will hold that record probably until such time as digital sales, overtake it. But Michael Jackson will hold the record for the biggest best-selling album of all time. Probably for another 50 years, well, maybe not, maybe 20, maybe 100 years, maybe forever, because nobody buys digital products anymore. Okay, and back in those days, if you wanted to listen to Thriller, you had to either go buy a tape, or you had to go buy a record, or you had to, bum a tape from your friend and record it. But most people didn't do that in those days, okay, because it was a thing. Elvis, if you wanted to buy Elvis, you had to go buy a record. And the Beatles are still the biggest selling album of a band of all time because you had to go buy their records. You'll never get the same thing these days. You'll get big sales. I mean, like you'll get a Billie Eilish or a Olivia Rodrigo or a Harry Styles who will, it's so nice to see some people rocking up for class. Hello, Miss SRC. Hello, Bonolo. Nice to see you guys. Okay, cool. So, you will see that those guys are making good sales, like an Ed Sheeran, he's doing well, but digital sales have never ever done, and people don't buy downloads anymore. They don't download, they just stream, so you get revenues from streaming. So you can see that is why in the past we had big record labels and big radio stations, and we do still have radio stations today, but they certainly are not in their heyday and in their prime like they were back in the 50s and 60s. Okay, and now we only have 3 major record labels left. Those would be Universal and Sony and Warner. Those are the only 3. All the others have been absorbed into those 3, and that's it. So guys, you can see innovation and digital opportunities and companies that don't want to change and grow are the reason why companies, fold and fall under and go under and do badly. So that's the context of this over here. So remember now for this assignment, and that's what I want to speak to you guys about. For this assignment, it's specifically about MediaMark. So what I want to do is I actually want to share my screen with you. And I was on MediaMark earlier, but I actually have logged off. Let me just quickly go into MediaMark, and I wanted to show you. Okay, and then you guys can see, I'm going to share my screen. I hope it's not going to cause my system to crash. Okay, I hope everything is okay because we now actually have some good people here, which is great. Okay, so entire screen, there we go. It's taking awfully long. Okay, now it seems to be acting up. Okay, this makes me very nervous. Let's try this again. Okay. I don't know why it's not. Oh, there we go. Okay, sorry. Okay. All right, guys. I think I just had a bit of a blonde moment there where I couldn't find the right button. Okay, that's cool. Okay, so guys, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
You can see it. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go to MediaMark. I'm just waiting for it to. You can see over here, MediaMark. Okay, so this is the brand that you guys need to focus on for question 2. Okay, and you can see over here, I quite like this. So you can see over here at the bottom, it says drive your media plans with MediaMark's highly engaged local and national multi-platform reach. And you can see digital reach 1.6 million, radio reach 3.9 million, digital audio 674,000, and social media reach is 3.7 million. Okay, so guys, I'm not sure how much of you guys, what do you think? And let's get some feedback over here. Lindiwe, Ms. SRC, good to see you. Bonolo, welcome to class. And what do you guys think MediaMark actually does? And then we're going to contextualize this and start going through the assignment question. Okay, so what do you guys think that MediaMark actually does? Lindiwe is typing. Again, whilst Lindiwe is typing, I'm going to say over here, this is the question, one can argue that MediaMark has taken on the challenges of new technologies and did not fall into a state of inertia. With the statement as a backdrop, discuss inertia and its sources in the context of MediaMark. Damn, who's locked off? Dennis is still here. Bonolo's gone. What a pity. Okay, is MediaMark not a full-service advertising / marketing agency? Correct, Lindiwe, it is. It is a full-service advertising and marketing agency. And if you have a look at it, you can see over here, okay, what they do is they obviously provide you with opportunities to connect with people by connecting with their brands. Okay, and you can see over here, media brands, unrivaled audiences, AdWeb, East Coast Radio, Jacaranda FM, Kaya. I don't know what D6 is, Indahash, I don't know what that is, Inspiring Women, I don't know what that is, Microsoft Casual Games, Outlook, excuse me, Multi-Local, MTN, MSN, Second Screen, and Vodacom. Okay, so guys, these are all organizations that they work with, they either own or they work with to get people to pay attention to messages, marketing messages from other people. So either these marketing messages from these companies or companies that engage. I mean, I am not a big fan of commercial radio. I know some of you guys listen to commercial radio. Okay, but of these over here, we obviously down here get East Coast Radio, which I never listen to. I will occasionally hear it if I'm in the Uber with one of the guys, or if I walk into a shopping center, they might be playing it. But generally speaking, the only thing I listen to on East Coast radio is for their traffic updates, and I don't listen to it otherwise. I don't listen to commercial radio stations anymore. Jacaranda, I find to be, for me, very, I don't know, I just don't like it at all. It's so plastic and so commercial, but that's me. You guys might absolutely love it, but it doesn't do anything for me. Kaya is probably the one radio station that I used to have some contact with when I was up in Joburg, in terms of, you know, the stuff, and it was kind of like an R&B sort of old soul, you know, sort of older vibe, not sort of house, not sort of, you know, dance EDM music, but sort of an older vibe, like a bit of jazz and a bit of, you know, sort of Afro pop, that kind of vibe. And so that was really, really you know, fun to listen to sometimes. But that is you guys must decide what, you know, what works for you. But you can see, so if I decide to tune into Kaya and listen to them, and let's say, for example, I say, oh, I like what they're playing and I think it's cool and I think our brand resonates, I would contact MediaMark and say, listen, I'd like to do some advertising on Kaya, please. And you would go through MediaMark to do this advertising. Okay, so that is the company, that's what it deals with. Okay, so now the question is, MediaMark has taken on the challenges of new technologies and did not fall into a state of inertia. With a statement as a backdrop, discuss inertia and its sources in the context of MediaMark. Okay, so guys, what I want to do now is I have to launch into some theory that we need to cover just to refresh your memory. So I'm going to open up this PowerPoint presentation that I have here, which is from Kung. Okay, so Kung 2017, pages 95 to 98. And you guys should definitely, let me change to presentation mode. Where am I? Slideshow, there we go. Okay, I hope this doesn't mess everything up. Okay, so Kung, okay, 95 to 98. So guys, you should include this information in your assignment. Okay, so now this is pure theory. Let's have a look at what Kung says. Okay, inertia and its causes. So inertia are the forces that stop an object from moving. Okay, so that is what the physical definition of it is. And like we said, that bump in the top of the hill that prevents a stone from falling over and going down the side of the hill. When technological change happens, the assumption is that organizations will change. Often they do not, or they change inadequately. Okay, so guys, I want to stop there for a minute as well. I want to ask you a question which I actually posed. I might share the marking rubric with you, although Chris hasn't approved it yet, just to give you guys a feel. He probably won't change it too much. I might think it's a little bit complicated, but anyway, so I'll share with you. Okay, but I want to ask you guys, I'm going to go out of here again so that I can see you. Okay, who can give me an example of a company that would not embrace technological change, and we wouldn't want them to embrace technological change? Okay, because it would be bad. So who can give me an example of a company or an organization or a product or a service that we wouldn't want people to change, wouldn't want it to be technologically altered? What do you guys think? I'll get the discussion started and say this. Some people believe, I mean, you know that there is a theory that we are reaching what is called what is it called? I said it popped out of my mind. The singularity, which is the point at which AI or digital robotics and that kind of thing become sentient and become self-aware and also become smarter than humans. Okay, so there is a possible future, if you're looking at futures and trend analysis, where people actually say human beings will become enhanced digitally with robotic systems, and we see it already. So, for example, you know, what Elon Musk is proposing now, is that we actually use robots and digital systems and welcome Ompemetse, robots and digital systems to enable people to be able to see. People who've never been able to see before, give them digital eyes so they can see. or give them a hand that can grip because they lost their, arm in a car accident or something like that. And for example, there may be a group of people who are morally objectionable, and they object to the idea of turning humans into part human, part robot, like a cyborg. They believe that it is not in line with religious beliefs, or their feelings about humanity, etc. So that could be one example of people who are saying, no, I don't think it's right that we should all become robots or partial robots, even if it means, we can replace our heart valve, and we can replace our lungs, and we can replace this and that, and it means we can live 150 or 200 years. It's not natural. So therefore, I think it's against the laws of nature, and therefore we should do it. So that's one example. Who can give me another example of, and I'll give you a clue. Look to organic, because organic will always give you an indication of what we don't want to mess with in terms of technology. You can give an example of a company that would not want to embrace technology because it would ruin their business model and their offering, their service offering, in terms of what they were offering the world. What do you guys think? Any thoughts? Dennis, on Lena, Michelle, Indiwe, on Pemete? What do you guys think? I don't want cinemas, movie theaters to change. I can't imagine if cinemas closed down just because we can stream from home. Removes the theatre experience, especially for premieres. Dennis, that's what Dennis said. Love it, Dennis. Thank you so much for your input. I think it's really, really cool. Missed having you talking in class. It was fun in the classes, hey? That's so cool, guys. So there's a great example. Okay, here's another example. Who of you, I'm going to write it in the column over here. Who of you has heard of and been to a restaurant out in the sticks on the outskirts of Joburg called Greensleeves? I don't know if you guys have been there. I don't know if you guys even know about it. So what you do is you go there and you dress in medieval clothing, and the food is modern, but you dress there in medieval clothing, and you sit around thingy, and you refer to waitresses as wench, and that kind of thing, and you have to go and ask the man for some salt. You say, "Dear sire, I do desire some salt for my squire," and all those kinds of things. And for example, if you need to go to the bathroom, it's quite fun. You go to the chap and say, "Dear sire, I do desire to take Alice to the chalice," for women. So Alice has to go to the chalice. Or what you say is, "I do desire to point Percy at the porcelain," which is what you do if you're a guy. So those are quite fun. And if you can see about it, if they now suddenly became all digital, it would completely ruin the experience of this old medieval, England vibe, whatever it is. So you can see that is, you can even argue with Charles and the coronation that there is a mix of Charles included new stuff, like that cool African choir, black choir that he had singing, that was completely new. It was never, they would never had that at a coronation, but they still had the old traditions. And then of course he pulled in different religions. They had a Muslim chap there and a Jewish chap there, and people from the Hindu community and the Sikhs and that kind of thing, which is definitely very new. And he was praised for it. They said, "Well done, Charles, for embracing the new modern UK, the new modern England, which has got a whole bunch of different people in it." So guys, those are examples of where you can and I would say the other thing also is food. Okay, we don't want to eat genetically modified food that's going to affect our bodies, unless you know that it's going to be enhanced. But generally speaking, we'd rather say no, we don't want to have genetically modified and enhanced food. Okay, welcome, Notando. So good to see you. Good class turnout today. That's very good. I'm pleased. Okay, so guys, let's then go back to the slides and let's continue. Okay, so current slide. Okay, when technological change happens, the assumption is that organizations will change. Often they do not, or they change inadequately. So we spoke about some examples this morning. You guys told me about the taxi industry. You guys told me about the SABC, about Musica. I spoke about Nokia and BlackBerry as examples. We spoke about the music industry, how it didn't want to change initially, and how they lost billions and billions. They were very, very much a closed industry, and they lost billions of dollars after they then became open and people started sharing files, etc., etc. Okay, so dominant incumbents will strategically appropriate resources and follow technological advances, but nonetheless fail to master the changes these advances bring. Okay, so guys, people sometimes in the industry will appropriate resources and follow technological advances, but they don't innovate enough. So what I've also said to you guys in the rubric is have a look at it, and you guys can write this down. Let me go out of the thing again and write it down for you. If you include this information in your assignment, you are likely to get a very good mark. Go and have a look at the fusion of innovations as a concept. It's usually in the form of a bell curve, okay, where we see how people adopt new technologies at the beginning. So I'm going to just put it into the chat, the fusion of innovations, which is a bell curve. And what we see is that people adopt new technologies or they don't, and how that leads to, I mean, for example, let's have a look. Why is it that the United States continues to be such an innovative country? Okay, even though they're losing ground to places like China and India and so on and so forth, there's a lot of innovation that comes out of those countries. And because of that, out of the United States specifically, because of that, they are continue to be world leaders. Okay, let's go back to the slides. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so guys, this is directly related to your question. It says, discuss inertia and its sources in the context of MediaMark. Okay, so what are the causes of inertia? The cause lies not in strategies, but inside the firm, in the structures, routines, systems, and processes that ensure survival in stable environments. Guys, I want to contradict King here, and you're welcome to do the same. In some cases, it could be the strategy that is the problem. It's not always that it's a bad organization. It's the strategy around the organization that's faulty. And that's why the organization is not doing well, because they're not innovating in their space. Okay, so it could also be the strategy. Okay, and you can see over here, coupled with the culture and self-identity that successful incumbents develop over time, which can stifle attempts to respond to a changed environment. So in some cases, for example, you'll walk into an organization, they'll say, oh, that's the way we've always done it. Famous last words, unless you're specifically creating an historical, culturally significant, culturally relevant brand to a specific time period, that's the way we've always done it, is not necessarily a good way to move forward. There was a specific mentor in my life many years ago. I've just been rereading the notes that she gave me. And she said, and she was, at the time, she was in her 60s, and she said, change is the essence of the universe. All that we have is change. The only constant is change. The only thing that does not change is the fact that everything changes. Okay, so one has to be careful. And guys, we can even have a look at this over here. I spoke to one of the part-time students on Friday last week. We had an interesting conversation, and she said her aunt is involved in politics, and she was talking about the rot that is in place in government. Not my words, hers. Okay, and you can see that culture and self-identity. Oh, and you guys, even some of you discussed it in your assignments. Okay, the whole idea that because the ANC is a 110-year-old, 111-year-old legacy brand, that people are automatically going to vote for them because it's the right thing to do. This is the country that was liberated by the ANC. The ANC, therefore, you should get their vote because they will prevent apartheid from coming back or something like that. And you can see that's their self-identity, that's their culture. I don't think it matters that much to you guys. You know, you guys who are young, you know, with Cupcake on the horizon, you guys don't necessarily care about that because I don't think that's ever a fear in your mind that apartheid would ever come back. Of course, it never could. It's impossible for it to come back. But if you were ever, you know, your parents or your grandparents might be afraid of that over there. But you can see that can affect and cause inertia, people refusing to change. Because really what government should do, just taking it back to Eskom, is they should say, okay, let's deregulate the industry, and let's get people in from foreign people in who can help us to create an innovative, modern, changing the times industry. But they don't want to because that means taking away their money base. Okay, because I think I saw a statistic the other day. Municipalities, 30% of their income in most cases, so most of the big municipalities, Joburg, Cape Town, Durban, Pretoria, Nelson Mandela Bay, Bloemfontein, East London, etc. All of those over there, okay, they 30% of their income comes from electricity. So they charge a premium. They get discounted rates from Eskom. They charge us a premium. That's how they make money. Okay, so they don't want to change the system because that means they won't have money. So that is a very interesting situation. Okay, let's have a look then. This is also causes. The systems and routines, etc., have been developed over time to ensure predictability. And the sophistication of these make the organizations become too inflexible to respond to the demands of their environments. Okay, so inertia is what stops successful existing organizations from benefiting from the opportunities presented by new technologies, which is the quote from King for your assignment. Okay, so let's have a look. How does success create inertia? I'm going to, whoopsie. I'm going to quickly move this thing over here if I can. There we go, so you guys can see the thing at the bottom. Okay, how success creates inertia? How? So this is one way, guys, that you can say, okay, and this is a danger with some of the brands under MediaMark. I mean, East Coast Radio is the biggest radio station in Durban and on the East Coast. Jacaranda is the biggest radio station in Pretoria, as far as I know. I'm not sure, there may be bigger ones, but I think that's the biggest one. And that success can actually stop them from flourishing. I even sent an email through to Pick n Pay yesterday and said, your service in your stores is really bad and you're losing ground to ShopRite Checkers. And they quickly responded and said, oh, thanks for letting us know. We'll do our best to improve our service. When I flew back from Joburg last week, I even said to Fly Safair, I said, why are you charging us extra money for bags? And they said, because you're overweight. And we said, yeah, but that's not fair because now you're charging us double when we should only be charged once. And I said, you need to be careful because now suddenly with the demise of SAA and Kalula and Comair, you guys have become the biggest. You've become very successful. And so you don't want to change because you're like sitting comfortably on your bum and you're saying, oh yeah, everything is fine because, you know, we're doing well and we're making lots of money. Famous last words, companies that were once famous and were once very successful that don't innovate with the times end up losing market share. Look at McDonald's. We've spoken about this in class as well. McDonald's was the first company in the world to introduce the drive-through. Was the first company in the world to introduce playstations or play areas in their restaurants. Very clever, to my knowledge. Okay, there may be some other, but they stole the idea and took it to McDonald's. Okay, so guys, how successful organizations seek to strengthen their position still further by obtaining their existing core competencies and making incremental improvements to their products and processes. But when a technology transition occurs and a new dominant design emerges, the incumbent is required to dismantle some aspect of these structures, even if they are functioning well. And this is counterintuitive and normally hard to do. So the organization is effectively trapped by its success. And Dennis gave the great example early on. He was saying the SABC still uses analog instead of digital. They're trying to switch. Okay, if you guys go research the history of MediaMark, you'll find that it used to be called Radmark, and it actually came out of the SABC because East Coast Radio used to be called Radio Port Natal back in the very, very, very old days. And Jacaranda used to be called, obviously, Radio Jacaranda back in the very old days. Okay, and those were both owned by the SABC. So they broke away, joined Kagiso Media, okay, and that was how they innovated. So it wasn't always necessarily technological. Sometimes it can just be the kind of organization that you belong to that will help you to become innovative. Okay, so that's an example over there of, and the SABC, it still has a role to play because it's sponsored by government, but it is just a tax hole like SAA and Eskom, etc., etc., etc. If those companies were working privately in private organizations, they would never ever survive as private organizations because they would fold to competition. Okay, so let's have a look at the next slide. Oh, crumbs, why does it want to move? Don't tell me my computer's died. Are you guys still there? Are you all still there? Can you guys all hear me? Notando, is that you saying yes?
Yes, it is.
Cool, thanks. Thank you, Notando, for sharing and confirming. Thanks. Okay, so guys, let's see here then. Continuing with the next slide. Okay, so guys, inertia from infrastructure systems and processes. Inertial factors can be tangible or intangible. So the tangible factors, they can range from physical buildings, plant, and machinery. Okay. For example, newspapers, expensive printing presses, and distribution infrastructures. Okay, so that's an example of tangible, guys. You can see machinery through newspapers, expensive printing presses, and distribution infrastructures. So there's a mistake there. There's an error. Apologies for that. Okay, and then semi-tangible. Skills, organizational performance metrics, and pension arrangements. Those can also affect your ability. Think about it, guys. If you have an organization that battles to bring in good, fresh talent, like Twitter, when Elon Musk took over Twitter, Elon Musk cannot possibly turn Tesla into a world-class company, or SpaceX into a world-class company, or Twitter into a world-class company on his own. He needs people to help him. So what he'll try and do is try and draw the very best talent to come and work for him and with him at those companies so that he can innovate and create brilliant products and services. Same thing that Steve Jobs did. Same thing that Bill Gates did. Same thing that Larry Page and Sergey Brin from Google/Alphabet do, and YouTube. That's what they do. And most of those people are based either now in Texas, they've all moved to Austin in Texas, or they're based in San Francisco, around the San Francisco Bay Area. Silicon Valley is there. Lots and lots and lots of really smart, technologically savvy people. That's why San Francisco is one of the most wealthy cities in the United States, because those people earn a lot of money, and it's all in dollars. Okay, so it's a it's actually a richer city than Los Angeles, even though Los Angeles is a bigger city than San Francisco. Okay, so there we go, guys. So it's a semi-tangible skills, and then intangible, shared beliefs and cultural assumptions. Okay, so, and that's one of the reasons why some organizations and even some people don't exist. You could argue that in terms of critical race theory and decoloniality, the Europeans forced themselves on local peoples and forced them to, embrace Western technologies at the time. So ships and farming methods and money and free market economies and those kind of things. Think about it. You guys all speak English today because South Africa is a former British colony. Okay, and however you feel about that. So those can also, lead to inertia. Right. Intangible sources of inertia. Success is one of the most intractable, hard to control or deal with sources of inertia. So, for example, US TV networks were slow to respond to cable TV and VCR, and the newspapers. High profits earned convinced them that they knew what readers really wanted, which left them vulnerable to digital news providers. So, guys, newspapers today, if they're not in the digital realm, they're busy dying. I bought a newspaper because I was intrigued by the headline a week ago, and that was probably the first newspaper that I bought in a year. And I also got upset because it cost 11 Rand. I'm like, oh, it's too expensive. I shouldn't have to pay 11 Rand for a newspaper. But anyway, so you can see. So guys, I can tell you now, for example, you guys may disagree with me or you may agree with me. DSTV in its original format is seriously facing lots and lots of competition from Netflix and from Disney Plus and so on and so forth. That's why they introduced Showmax, because it's an adjacency. Remember, these are all related, so this is an adjacency. They said, well, let's play in the digital realm. So you can either choose to be on your normal DSTV package with your old thingy, or you can play in the digital realm where you can connect digitally and also have Showmax. Okay, so there we go. Those are examples of intangible sources of inertia. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so guys, you need to be aware of those and keep those in mind when you're doing your assignment. Dennis has left. Dennis, you're very, very, very naughty student. Okay, cool. Good to see everybody else here though still. Okay, good. All right, so guys, maybe Dennis's battery died or something. Okay, so guys, this is really, really important to be able to, and because we don't have a lot of time, I can probably go through it with you again next week, but next week we need to focus on question 3, and the week after we have to focus on some technical stuff. So I don't know if I should go through this with you, but I think maybe I should. Let me go through this with you. Okay, let me go through this with you, and then we can take it from there. Okay, so let me just check over here. Okay, so guys, this is your answer template, like the one Chris is going through with you. Your answer template and marking criteria as part of the F2 assessment, which is due on the 9th of June. 9th of June, sorry, not 9th of June. Okay, so question 2. You will be uploading a video. I'm helping you with this, but anyway, so what I wanted to say to you guys is technological change in terms of inertia. We've discussed the King example. MediaMarkt has embraced change and not fallen prey to organizational or technological inertia. Inertia, you can see we discussed now, from 1, infrastructure systems and processes, and 2, intangible sources such as poor marketing strategy and or lack of strategic innovation. So guys, poor marketing strategy and lack of strategic innovation can also be causes for why your company is fading. I remember I went and had a chat with one of the guys who works at DSTV. I think I've mentioned this to you before. And I said to him, Peter, why is it that we can't choose our own DSTV channels? I'm now forced to live with a package, either 29 Rand a month package. Okay, that's the cheapest one. I'm only limited to you should allow me to choose my own 10 channels and pay you 100 Rand a month. Then you'd have zillions of people subscribing. Because I can tell you now, innovative people like you guys, well-educated younger people, don't watch traditional DSTV. You'll watch on your devices and you'll pay attention to it online. You won't be tuning into it on the TV anymore, in all likelihood. Okay, so guys, you should come up with 4 solid points. Chris may change this. I said James, come up with 4 solid points on how MediaMarkt has embraced technological change and in so doing has overcome inertia. Okay, so guys, what I said over here on the left-hand side is define a type of inertia and discuss it. Okay, so if Chris does change this, I'll go through it with you again next week so you guys can know what's been changed. But he probably won't change it all that much because it is very linked to the question paper. Okay, so define a type of inertia and discuss it. Okay, indicate the idea and then define it using a source. Okay, then do a first point or a second point or a third point or a fourth point on how MediaMarkt has embraced change, overcome inertia, and taken on the challenges of new media. You can use research to show that you understand how MediaMarkt has done this. And guys, I would say here use 3 credible, relevant sources that should be used and include academic sources over and above the textbook. So guys, go down and bond with the library. I showed you guys the library 2 weeks ago now, I think it was, and said go to the library and go and see. You've got all, there must be 1,000 textbooks there that you can use. Go pull 2 or 3 out, get some quotes from them, put them into your assignment. It's going to push up your mark. Okay, and you can see over here how this change has helped them to innovate and stay relevant. And you need another credible, relevant source added to this. Okay, so guys, example, I said intangible inertia, shared beliefs and cultural assumptions. This is King, 95 to 98. One example of this is the failure of an organization to understand that technological change, which you can see is one of the pestle factors, drives innovation or drives decline. So if you do not embrace technological change, you're probably going to decline. We've mentioned examples today: Musica, the music industry, what was the other one? Nokia, BlackBerry, etc., etc. So the taxi industry, etc., etc. Okay, organizations that embrace it will thrive. Those that don't will decline in most cases, unless you see, again, as I mentioned over here, caveat. Can you think of an organization that would survive despite technological change? I'm over here now, and then, like I said to you, guys, think of Rovos Rail. Have you guys heard of Rovos Rail? Has anybody heard of Rovos Rail?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you, Notando. Okay. So, guys, Rovos Rail. Let me see if I can click. You can still see my screen now. Let me quickly go onto thingy and see over here. Let's see Rovos Rail. Rovos Rail. Let's look at some images quick. Where are we? Okay, so guys, can you see the images? I hope they're all coming onto your screen. It should be. Okay, that's the inside of your cart, of your train car. It's a railway like the blue train that travels between Pretoria and travels between Pretoria and Cape Town, or goes up country as well. Let me see if it's going to let me share it. But no, it's not going to make the system crash. There we go. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Some of the others. There we go. Check it out. See on the back there of the train. There we go. See a train, choo-choo. There we go. There's a steam train. Pride of Africa. So it looks like in the dining cart, you can see it's got very much like a Victorian, Edwardian theme, sort of like turn of the century, like Joburg when it was first founded, like Gold Reef City, that kind of vibe. You can see. Are those the images? Okay, there's the dining cart as well. Beautiful. Look how beautiful it is. And it costs a fortune. I think it's about 100,000 Rand per person if you want to travel between Joburg and Dar es Salaam, or Cape Town and Dar es Salaam. It is hellaciously expensive, okay, but absolute lap of luxury. I think it's like 12 days on this train. Okay, so that's what it looks like. You might say, oh, Rob, how boring is that? Okay, so now let me ask you guys a question, and I want you guys to tell me. There we go. Beautiful. Look at it. I'd love to go on it, but 100,000 Rand, I'd rather buy property than spend 100,000 Rand on a train trip. But it is beautiful. If I was billionaire, I would definitely try it out once. Okay, look how beautiful it is. Okay, so okay, I think you guys get the general idea. But look how pretty it is. Really pretty. See, look at that, gorgeous. It's like one of the suite that you sleep in. No, there's anything there. That's the blue train, actually. Okay, it's Rovos Rail still. Dining cart, Victoria Falls. So they go to Vic Falls. Very pretty. Okay, that's not the Rovos Rail to my knowledge. Rovos Rail, part 2. Okay. Okay, that's the dining cart again, or the cigar lounge. Okay, I think you guys get the general idea. Okay, so now let me ask you a question. See that you're all still there. Okay, let me ask you a question. Why on earth would you want to travel on an old school 100-year-old train instead of flying? Because Joburg to Dar es Salaam is probably 5 hours by plane. Joburg to Cape Town by plane is 2 hours. Why would you want to travel on an old train? What do you guys think? Michelle, Onelena, Lindiwe, Ompemetse, Notando, what do you guys think?
Hello.
Notando, can you hear me?
I can. I'm somewhere very noisy. I'm in the canteen, so I don't know if you can get me properly.
I can hear you. Yes. Do you want to speak, please?
Yes. I just wanted to say, sir, it's you probably wouldn't be paying for the trip, like just the transport. You're more paying for the experience. So like it's a fancy experience. You're seeing the country. You've got access to a bunch of facilities on the thing on the train. So it's like it's just the experience. And also the answer was provided by Beverly. She said I must tell you that.
Answer provided by Beverly. The answer provided by Beverly. Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well done, Ms. SRC. Thank you, Tando. That's very kind. Yes, that's exactly right. You guys are you guys are paying for the experience. You're paying for this old world, old feel, slow. The train does like 60 kilometers an hour, 90 kilometers an hour. It's romantic. It's wood. It's carpet. It's rich. It's warm. It's luxury. Same thing with a trip on a boat, guys. We don't need, you know, we need boats to transport, you know, big containers across the ocean. Okay, but you do not need a boat anymore to transport people across oceans. That's why we have planes. But boat cruises are extremely popular. Why? Because it's about the experience, it's about the romance, it's about the motion of the ocean or the motion of the train rocking you back and forth to sleep. It's about delicious meals and having rest and reading a book and sleeping and, you know, just enjoying the passing scenery. It is so lovely. And you don't want that to be influenced by technology. You know, you don't want that to be, you don't want to, you know, go on and the bullet train. If you want to go on the bullet train from Tokyo to Osaka, that also is a phenomenal experience, but it's completely different to the old world experience that you want of a ship or of the Rovos rail. So guys, in some instances, let me go back to this over here. In some instances, you don't want to innovate technologically. Okay, but in this instance over here, MediaMarkt has chosen to do so because it's going to help them. Okay, so guys, what I said over here from the section over here, I'm going to highlight it also in yellow. Look at academic sources on diffusion of innovation. And here is an example of an answer. So I'm going to highlight it up to here in yellow. We can read it. King indicates that some organizations have a culture that is resistant to change when it comes to the technological realm. However, this becomes problematic when companies need to innovate in order to survive and thrive. Related to this, and now I've put some extra sources in, you can see over here. I'm going to go down. Let's just start over here first. Whoops. Related to this, Amara suggests that in highly competitive markets, every product and brand is fighting for the same market share, and hence effectiveness is defined by innovation, with The Economist reporting that consumer anarchy reigns and a plethora of brands are screaming for attention. Okay, this further relates to what Haig in Brayball says about brand fatigue, or the notion that companies becoming bored with their brands, which they then start to lack creativity as well as brand irrelevance, or the notion that when a market evolves drastically, the brand faces the risk of becoming irrelevant and obsolete. Okay, so moving along. Similarly, in Reynolds in Hillary reports that with the pressure to adapt increasing, future businesses, business models will have to take greater account of a far more powerful combination of market drivers than before, while at the same time also seeking to create first mover advantages over and over again if they are to succeed, with the biggest challenges being the new triple bottom line of economic, social, and environmental performance. Okay, therefore, the only way for a business to stay out in front is to be aware of trends that are affecting the marketplace in the hope of creating some sort of sustainable competitive advantage. That's Gosselin and Gresham, which will allow a specific brand to become more distinct than a competing brand. Okay, so guys, there's your theory linked to what Kuhn said about innovation and about inertia and about resisting change. Okay, so then the next point over here is, okay, you're going to do 4 points. That's what I've suggested. Chris may change it, but you're going to do 4 points on how MediaMarkt has embraced change, overcome inertia, and taken on the challenges of new media. So use research to show that you understand how MediaMarkt has done this. So I've said 3 credible, relevant sources should be used, include academic sources over and above the textbook. So guys, the more sources you use and the more academic they are, the higher your mark is going to be. Okay, and really, again, the reason why I'm doing this is to help you guys at the end of the day go out into industry and know the stuff so well, they're like, oh, we need to hire this person because they're so on the mark and they know what they're talking about. Okay, so let's look at an example. Okay, so MediaMark indicates that over time, the restructuring of the company to embrace the political, economic, and technological changes in South Africa saw them rebrand from Radmark to MediaMark. Radmark itself emerged from the SABC radio stations that broke away and became independent of the parent organization, such as Jacaranda FM and East Coast Radio. MediaMark embraced the privatization and digitization of the media industry, and since being bought out by Kagiso Media, has been able to position itself as a one-stop media advertising hub that includes digital radio, digital reach, radio reach, digital audio reach, and social media reach. Okay, so then contextualizing, it is clear that MediaMark has chosen to embrace change because it wishes to stay connected to audiences. Sorry for the spelling mistake. Duncan gives credibility to this assertion by stating that the internet has its greatest function as a communication link. Farquhar also stipulates that the internet's ability to engender a one-on-one dialogue with consumers will eventually turn it into the dominant communication medium, with Naidu adding that the internet builds both brands and people by giving marketers the opportunity to have a one-on-one dialogue with target markets. Okay, so guys, what we're saying here is that MediaMark is able to embrace, and this is just a very small example. You guys need to elaborate more when you do your question paper. What is happening here is you are contextualizing the stuff from MediaMark and saying that because they have used digital technology to still stay in touch with people, because communication is so important to people, that's how they have overcome inertia and embraced digital change. Okay, and then you can see over here, moving along to this over here, how has this change helped them to innovate and stay relevant? Let's use a different color. Let's use blue, okay, or cyan. Okay, so how has the change helped them to stay innovate and stay relevant? Let's look at an example over here. Hut and Spare caution that high-tech marketing requires the building of a strong brand. This leads on to e-branding, where Walker asserts that e-branding is the process of establishing a customer's viewpoint about a company and its product in an online environment. Now you can see we've contextualized this over here. Okay. MediaMark has done this very successfully, both from the point of positioning its own business and also helping other brands position theirs. MediaMark's website explains its brand positioning as a company that seeks to help other companies create strong digital brand footprints by driving engagement and hits. Okay, then we contextualize again using more theory. Similarly, eBrand suggests that electronic branding is the establishment of a brand in the digital world by extending the brand into the realm of electronic communications, given its increased importance as a function in modern society, as does Reda. Also states that electronic branding is taking a brand and applying it to electronic media. Furthermore, Fazerink purports that electronic branding is simply the application of branding in an electronic sense. I'm not going to highlight that, I'll just do this part over here, where the application of the timeless principles of branding has been interwoven into a business complexity that involves electronic media, such that the greatest attraction is an extended dimension of communication vehicles and avenues, an extended dimension of distribution, and an extended dimension of company and customer contact capabilities. So guys, you can see over here, this is why MediaMark has been successful, because they have introduced new communication opportunities, new distribution opportunities, and new customer contact opportunities. Okay, so then we contextualize again. The ability of MediaMark to have interwoven their brand into a powerful digital force, and that they've also been able to do this with companies that use them, shows how their ability to innovate has kept them relevant in 2023 and at the forefront of digital driving forces. In an age when radio listenership is in decline, MediaMark has been able to retain customer engagement and radio listenership for brands like Jacaranda FM and East Coast Radio because of the seamless integration of both traditional media, such as radio, and new traditional media. Okay, so hint, you would need an extra source or two for this last piece of writing, just to let you know to really make it a strong, robust answer. Okay, so guys, that is one example of how MediaMark is using digital change to overcome the inertia. So now what I'd like to do is, if at all possible, let's see who's still with me. Okay, Lindiwe is still with me. I'm assuming she's with Nortando. Umpimes is with me. Onlena's with me. And Michelle's with me. Okay, guys, I would like each of you, please, to give me an example of where you think MediaMark is innovating in the digital space and overcoming inertia. So let me go back onto their website. You guys can have a look. You can see over here, I'll just leave it static. You guys can see if you want to. But I would like for each of you, please, to tell me, if you can. Let's go to the About page again. How you think each of these companies, or sorry, a way in which MediaMark is helping companies in the digital space, and as a result of that, they have managed to stay relevant, and that's why people pay them money. Okay, so you can see they've been around for 25 years, provide solutions to the advertising and media industry, multi-channel sales house representing world-class audio and digital media brands who offer deep and engaged connections with their audiences. MediaMark connects advertisers with these audiences through relationships that matter and solution-driven results that count. Okay, so you can see, guys, look at that over there. This actually is perfect for question 1.4, because there they speak about relationships that matter. That's about advertising that is focused on the community, and then of course having results that count, solution-driven results that count. That relates to performance-based advertising. So the first one is target-based advertising in terms of your target markets, and the second one is performance-based advertising. So even here, for this next question, it still relates back to question 1.4. So you can see how much you guys have learned and how much you can apply to these things. Okay, who wants to give me an example? Network is a little bad on our end, but we're still on. Awesome. Thank you, Lindiwe. I appreciate it. Thank you, Tando. Okay, Onlena's typing. What do you guys think? Try and see what you can do via WhatsApp if you want to, or you can just do it in the chat if you want to. Okay, so Onlena was busy typing. Michelle, do you want to speak? Are you able to speak from where you are at the canteen?
What was the question? Sorry.
Can you give me an example of how MediaMark, other than the example that I've given you, an example of how MediaMark is using new technology to not fall victim to inertia, based on what we've discussed and what you can see over here on their page over here. This is their page on their website, their About page.
I'm not sure. I think maybe because of what the firm is, obviously a marketing agency, advertising agency, I'd say that possibly if new technologies comes out that kind of hinder them performing the task? I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question, honestly.
Okay, do you want to give it some thought for 5 minutes and then come back to me?
Yes.
Cool, thanks. Okay, so Onlena's still typing. Tando, can you hear? Onlena, your microphone's on. Did you want to
Yeah,
speak?
what did you say? I feel like I'm just going to take too much time typing.
Okay, cool. You can speak. That's great. Thanks.
I think with the work that MediaMark has done with Kaya FM, for example,
Yes.
it's one of the radio stations that started like what they call Kaya TV now, where it's like what we were basically talking about the other day about radio now turning into podcasts and all of that.
Yes.
I think if I remember properly, they were one of the first radio stations that adapted that. And I just think their marketing is quite brilliant because I could never scroll on TikTok and I don't see a snippet of a radio show that happened on Kaya FM. So I think the marketing that they have done for Kaya FM is great, especially adapting new technology to it.
Awesome. So you say you see them a lot on TikTok?
Yes.
Stunning. And what is that an example of that we spoke about previously, Onlena, as it relates to question 1.3? Have you got your paper in front of you? Correct. Very good. So you can see, guys, it all ties together. It's an adjacency. Okay, but because Kaya FM is a radio station, or used to be, now it's become Kaya TV, which gives them the opportunity to also engage with people on TikTok. Because, like me, for example, how does Kaya FM reach me as a listener? I don't listen to, into commercial radio anymore. So how are they going to reach me? That's reached by one of the mediums and that's the problem with media. It's become, remember we spoke about at the beginning, disintermediation, fragmentation. There's become so much media available that's very hard to reach customers and to get through to them, get messages through to them because they are overwhelmed by marketing messages. Okay, so that is, it's a challenge. It really is a challenge. Good. Thank you, Onlena. Good example. Michelle, are you ready?
No, not yet.
Okay, I'll give you a few more minutes. Okay, Tando, Lindiwe, Ompemetse, Bonolo, what do you guys think?
Tando and Lindiwe went out for a bit. They'll be back in a few minutes.
Cool. Bonolo, Ompemetse, what do you guys think? You guys can either chat or you can put it in the, you can speak or you can put it in the chat if you want. What do you guys think? Who's left? Tando, I think, is left. Okay, Lindiwe is still on. Okay, but Tando's gone off. Okay, cool. Michelle, any thoughts on your side?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so I give you a few more minutes. Let's quickly go back to this over here, guys. Now, also, I wanted to check with you, and by show of responses in chat, Chris did originally say that, you guys felt the classes were too long. So he just wanted us to do like a 2.5 hour class and then a discussion class afterwards. Are you still feeling that way? Onlena, how are you guys feeling about that?
I feel it's okay. I mean, me personally, I thought we're gonna have the first like 2.5 hours obviously interacting now as we are, and then
Yes.
the rest of the time probably it could be on core campus. Like you can ask us specific questions and also on core campus or maybe on WhatsApp, you know.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Yes, we'll do it like that. We will continue working on Cole Campus. And also I'll keep Teams open. Thanks, Michelle. I'll keep Teams open. I'll go into Cole Campus and I'll also chat with you guys on the WhatsApp group. And then we take it from there and see what happens. Okay, so let's go back whilst we're waiting for another minute or two. Maybe Miss SRC and Tando will rejoin us. Okay, so let's read over here what it says about Kagiso Media, the section over here. Okay, so Kagiso Media was established in 1997 by Kagiso Trust Investments to manage its media portfolio, which at the time included industry leaders in broadcast media, specialist publishing, and exhibitions and events companies. So guys, can you see that over there? Look at that. It's not just about broadcast media, it's also eventing. And now take it back to, what are the 5 elements again of the marketing communications mix? Do you guys know what those are? You can see that Kagiso Media very much does that over there. So I'm going to put the question over here to you. What are the 5 elements of the marketing communications mix? Okay, so Bonolo's typing. Yes. Good to hear you, Bonolo. Promotion, place, product. Yes, those are the 4 elements of the marketing mix. Correct. You partially right, Bonola. Well done. Thanks for participating. Okay, so the 4 elements of the marketing mix are product, price, place, promotion, okay, and then some people also say that I don't like these people and processes. So they're actually 6 now. And the reason why they say that is because, oh, well, those are all implied, guys. You cannot have product, price, place, promotion without having people and processes. Okay, so those for me are implied. And this is very old marketing theory, but it still holds water today. People say, oh, Rob, that's such old marketing theory. How can you teach that? Because it's still true today. It's still relevant today. Okay, the last is physical evidence. That's also true, Michelle. But the thing is, physical evidence is also implied. So people say, oh, it's not. There's 7 elements of the marketing mix. I'm like, physical evidence is also, you know, part of the original 4, because your physical evidence would, for example, be your product. Okay, but now, for example, under promotion, which we can also refer to as marketing communications. Okay, so we're coming to a point over here. Under promotion, which refers to marketing communications, there are 5 elements, and you guys all know them, but let's go through them. Okay, the first one is advertising. Okay, the second one is PR or publicity. Third one is sales promotion, which we can also call an event. Okay, it's not necessarily always about sales, it's about also just promoting brands. The fourth one is sales itself, so personal sales. This is your salespeople. Okay, and the fifth one is what we refer to as direct marketing, which is everything that doesn't fall into those 4, which includes email and social. Okay, so now if we go back to, oopsie, there we go, that's it. Okay, so cool. Is it putting it down there? I don't know why it's, oh, there we go. Okay, cool. Okay, so guys, if you have a look over here, now let's go back to Kagiso Media, okay, in the context of MediaMark. You can see over here, they specifically talk about, okay, specialist publishing, that is, could be PR, could be advertising, okay, broadcast media, that's advertising, could also be PR, okay, exhibitions is sales promotions, events companies is sales promotions. Okay, so can you see Kagiso Media and MediaMark as part of Kagiso Media also works across these over here. So now if you take that, and again, Onlena speaking to you about the adjacencies, okay, they have expanded from what they were traditionally. Because remember, if you read this section over here, you will see, okay, so MediaMark history, it used to be called Radmark, and then it became MediaMark, okay, and Radmark actually came out of the SABC, who sold off their radio stations back in 1996. Okay, so you can see it started out as radio, guys. Okay, but then they realized, as you guys have, that you can't just do radio. Well, you can, but if you want to make more money, why don't you integrate all your media and use them all? So let's integrate, which is exactly what this course is about. Integrated media management. Okay, so MediaMark is all about integrated media management. They take their media and they manage them all together. Oops, sorry, that's a spelling mistake. Integrated, not integrated. Integrated media management, which is your course. IMM. Oopsie. IMM 432_1. That's the actual code. Okay, so IMM. So you can see over there, guys, this is also, that's one of the areas where you can relate back to what we've spoken about. How have MediaMark taken advantage of new technologies to prevent themselves from falling into a state of inertia? They said, listen, we can no longer just be a radio station. We have to now also be and if you look over here at the top, we must now also be a solutions provider. Remember I said to you guys in your first class, if you're providing a solution to a problem, you'll always have a job. Okay, so a solutions provider to the advertising and media industry. How? Well, if you have a look, we have a whole bunch of radio stations. Okay, with this on a different page, we've got East Coast Radio, we've got Kaya, we've got Jacaranda, etc., etc., etc. And then we have a whole bunch of other ways we can communicate with people. They're somehow involved with Vodacom, or maybe Vodacom's one of their clients. Okay, think about that chappie who's suing Vodacom for 28 billion rand because he claims that he invented the please call me thing. The Vodacom then used, you send out a please call me and it sends it back to you with an ad attached to it. So he's now suing Vodacom for 20, I think it's 28, it was 10 billion. I think it's gone up for 28 billion rand and saying, you need to pay me because you guys have made so much money off the call me system. It's mind-boggling, and I think it's really gone to the Constitutional Court, and Vodacom's dragging their heels and saying, we're not going to pay you because it's a huge amount of money. Okay, so guys, you can see audio and digital brands. They speak about over here, media brands, and you can see over here, so they were radio, but they're no longer just radio. Okay, radio stations. You can see Kagiso. So they got the license for Jacaranda FM, and then Kagiso Media got the license for East Coast Radio and Radio Orania. I don't know what Radio Orania is called these days, but I think it's called OFM. I don't know if it's still part of Kagiso Media. Might have sold it. Okay, but you can see, guys, that is another example of how they said, well, how do we attach, and this relates back to question 1.3, how do we attach these adjacencies in terms of the marketing communications mix by providing extra opportunities for us to connect with people and insert to make sure that we are not falling victim to inertia. Because I can tell you right now, guys, if you were a radio station stuck in the 60s, okay, it's using the same formatting, the same programming, think of your MyFM example, your radio station is either bankrupt or on the verge of closing down and becoming bankrupt because people have moved on. You have to embrace new technologies because otherwise you're not going to be innovating, you're going to be falling victim to inertia. Okay, so guys, that is pretty much in a nutshell what we wanted to cover in terms of the beginning of the class. I'm going to continue the discussion on Teams and also on Cole Campus, and then also on the WhatsApp group. But I wanted to ask you guys before we go. I still wanted to ask you guys. Lindiwe, are you back? Onlena, are you still around? Michelle, you still around? Can you guys give me another example? I know Onlena, you've given me one. Lindiwe, Bonolo, Ompemetse. Can you guys give me other examples of adjacencies or of new technologies that include adjacencies that MediaMarkt has embraced that will allow them to not fall into states of inertia? Let's talk about the future for a minute. What do you guys think? Michelle, this is a good question for you because you're good at theorizing about trends that are coming down the drag. What do you think the future of radio looks like? As an example, are we still going to be listening to traditional radio stations in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time? What do you think?
I think it's kind of gonna be like a bit of a hybrid of both
Hybrid.
because
Okay.
yes, not everyone obviously at this moment in time listens to radio, but like with the example that Anna gave, KFM is using other streams so that they can engage with people, which is the podcast, the TV one. You can watch the TV without actually listening to the radio and stuff like that. So I think that's definitely the future. Also having different personalities, having podcasts that kind of link into the radio station in a way. But definitely the biggest thing would have to be having their own TV rights deal or something like that. And yeah, basically I think that it, I'm not sure because each radio station has its own niche market, obviously. So I think to kind of adapt might be a bit difficult for some, but definitely the future is going to podcasting and TV specials, stuff like that.
Cool. Very good. Thank you, Michelle. I really like to hear your inputs. All of you guys like your, but exactly. I mean, I know that I actually end up, I don't listen to, like I said, radio anymore, and I happened to come across an interview on 702 that was broadcast on YouTube, and I listened to the interview on 702 because I was on YouTube. If I had been tuning into 702 using a radio, I wouldn't have picked it up at all. But because it was on YouTube, I was actually tuned into, by accident, the radio broadcast. For Norla, let's see. I think radio is also switching to using other mediums. Now they're going live, some moving to podcasting. Very good. Okay, so just confirm what Michelle had said. Okay, guys, we don't know what the future looks like. You guys should go into YouTube and go and watch predictions of the future from 100 years ago or from 50 years ago, like in the 60s. Probably the only guy who ever got the predictions mostly right was a guy called Arthur C. Clarke. Okay, and he wrote 2 books called 2001: A Space Odyssey. Oops, is it double D double S, I think. Why does it look wrong? Odyssey. Oh no, it still looks wrong. I don't know. Let's see. There we go. Double D double S. Okay. Oh no, that's still wrong. Maybe it's one single D. Oh my gosh, I don't know why my spelling is so bad. My spelling is usually very good. Okay. So Arthur C. Clarke, he was on a Space Odyssey, and then he wrote another book called 2010. Okay, and he said in these books, he actually ended up living in Sri Lanka, and he said we would have been at the moon and we'd been in Mars 20 years ago already if it wasn't for the space race and the Cold War between the Soviet Union, the then Soviet Union, and the United States. Today between East and West, so Russia versus, and China versus, and possibly India versus the US and Europe. Okay, so he actually predicted a lot of the technologies that we have today. He basically came up with some sort of idea of like an internet kind of vibe. Okay, we said we'd be able to communicate with each other using the internet. So he was one of the predecessors, and also very interestingly though, guys, okay, the internet actually has its origins in the 1960s with the ARPANET. It used to be a military application. And did you guys know I think the first cell phone, there was the guy who invented the cell phone, I think he's just turned 100. I think the very first cell phone came out 50 years ago, I think, 1973, or was it 1972? One of the two. Okay, the very first cell phone. Okay, so even and driverless cars, which we don't even have yet, although we're still working on the technology, have been around since as long ago as 1999. So it takes sometimes a long time for technology to get picked up. But now I want to pose a question to you guys, and then I'm going to finish off the first part of the class, give you guys a break, and then switch to a blended hybrid version between Cole Campus and here, and also record some video and stuff. Okay, but I wanted to ask you guys on this. What do you guys make of this saying? So I'm putting this in over here. The more high-tech we become, the more high-touch we need to become. And that also relates to something I said earlier. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Okay, so what do you guys make of the whole idea of the more high-tech we become, the more high-touch we need to become? What do you guys think? Michelle? Onelena, Ompemete, Lindiwe, Bonolo? What do you guys think? And I really want you guys to think again about what we spoke about. Why do we have modern technology and digital media? What do you guys think? What is the point of all this modern technology and digital media? Like I said to you guys last week in the class, think about it. 500 years ago, well, let's talk Turkey. 1788, the British landed controversially at Port Jackson, Botany Bay, Sydney Cove, and founded Sydney, 1788. Okay, so how many years ago was that? That was 100 and almost 40 years ago. No, talking rubbish. 240 years ago. No, yes, 240 years ago. Okay. Okay, so let's say, give or take, let's say you were shipped off to the colonies because you had stolen a loaf of bread because you were starving to death, and they put you on a ship and sent you off to Sydney to go and become the penal colony. And then your mom decided to write you a letter. Okay, and she said, "Hello, my dear child. I'm so sorry that we live in a horrible society that doesn't allow people to eat, and so you have to steal the bread. How are you doing? How's it going in the penal colony in Australia? Are you still alive? How are you doing?" Okay, and to think about how long it would have taken for the ship to travel down from London to Sydney, you to get the letter, and then send the letter back to your mom and say, "Hi, Mom, I'm surviving. I've lost some weight because prison isn't fun. They've got strange jellyfish in the water here. We can't really swim in the water anyway because we're under lock and key. But anyway, if you do happen to get stung by a jellyfish, you're likely to die. P.S. by the way, it's hot as blazes, and I've got a sunburn. Love you lots. Hope to see you soon." How long do you think it would have taken for that message to go from London to Sydney and back to London back in those days? Michelle, Ompemete, Onelena, Indiwe, Onola, what do you guys think?
I think depending on the weather conditions and a week, I'd say maybe a couple of months. Maybe after that, then it would have been a couple of weeks. But I'm just going to stick with a couple of months.
Okay, cool. So a couple of months. Cool. There we go. So it's a couple of months to send two-way communication from London back to Sydney. How long does it take these days to send a WhatsApp from London to Sydney and back to London?
Seconds.
Seconds. There we go. That's the difference, guys, the speed of communication. So you can argue one of the things that we have today is speed that we didn't have in those days. Okay, and like you guys also all said, okay, we also saw and we can see how we are all becoming Windows orientated. We all have windows open, lots of open windows. Okay, so for example, you guys are sitting in the canteen listening to Rob and playing pool and eating snacks and chatting with other students, okay, and watching TikTok and watching the TV and listening to a music video. and those of you at home. And that's how we operate in this day and age. We all become these multitasking, crazy people who just absorbed by technology. That's how crazy it is. Okay, so, but the thing is, what is the most fundamental human need at the end of the day? Why is it that we still need to connect with each other? And I know it's going to sound very cheesy, but let's talk about it. You guys agree? The need for human connection, the need to connect with other human beings. And that's why we have the speedy technology, okay, to be able to connect with other human beings. So love, you could say it's love, or you could say it's just and not necessarily be love, but it could be a connection. And that is one thing that modern technology allows us to have. So let's go back up to what we said, or let me write it again. The more high tech we become, the more high touch we become. They often say the internet is 8 billion lonely people who don't know how to connect with each other in real life. Okay, so whatever you guys make of that, whether you guys agree or not. Okay, so we still need to have human interaction. I mean, look at you guys sitting in the canteen, chatting with me. You guys even said, "Oh, Rob, we don't like digital classes. You really need to be with us in person," because it's not the same. Okay, and digital technology is not able to recreate. I don't know if digital technology will ever be able to recreate a human connection. I wrote an article a couple of years ago about robots, and I said, you know, it might be fun to be served by a robot by a pizza. Sorry, a pizza by a robot. Okay, but where's the fun in it? You guys all said earlier when we were talking about Rovos Rail and about traveling on ships, about the experience, about the romance of the old-fashioned ways, and how none of that has been affected by technology. And if it was, it wouldn't be the same. The only way those things have been affected by technology is Rovos Rail, for example, will use a YouTube video to show scenes of their carriages, or show scenes of the towns they travel through, and they'll use a website to do bookings, and they'll use so you know they'll use a digital content aggregator, or an e-portal gateway, so you can do your bookings through there, etc., etc. That's the only digital experience. The rest, and then of course what you'll do is you'll go onto the Rovos Rail, say, I'm in Joburg, take a photograph, a selfie of you and your mates lying in bed, put it on Facebook, and then tomorrow you're in Harare, take a photograph, oh, I'm in Harare, and you stop and you walk around. And that's how the two connect. So again, taking it back to the assignment, okay, and taking it back to what we discussed earlier on, how has MediaMark overcome their inertia, and how has MediaMark not allowed inertia to stop them from benefiting from the opportunities which are presented by new technologies? And I think we've discussed that in copious amounts of detail today. So we'll continue the discussion this afternoon if you guys want to. But just then also to let you know that next week, pending approval from Chris, we'll be going through question 3. And then the week after, pending approval from Chris, we'll be revising anything you guys want to go through, but we'll also be going then through again the technical stuff so you can see. But guys, we gave you a good overview of technical stuff today. You guys can see
sounds
what
good.
Sorry, Chris.
Sorry. I was just saying that sounds good. Approval granted.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate that. Cool. So guys, that's the plan going forward. So we've done question 2. We'll still discuss it this afternoon. And then next week will be question 3, which will be the 24th. And then the week after will be question technical of the 31st. And then, as you guys know, on the 7th, I think it is, which we're supposed to have class, there is no class that week as confirmed by Chris, because you guys are submitting your assignments. And then I don't know, I think there's a bit of a break after that. And then, of course, we come back for second semester. Cool. Okay, any questions? Anybody want to add anything?
I'm good on my side. I don't know about anyone else.
Good. Okay, cool. Miss SRC, are you back? Is SRC back? Michelle, she back?
I'm Rob.
Hey, Lindy, what are your thoughts? How are you doing? Are you good?
I'm back on
You
what?
look good. Can you hear
What
me?
am I back on?
Are you back on?
What are we talking about? What are we talking about?
We're
Hi,
talking
Rob.
about
I am,
question,
yes.
we're talking about question 2. Question 2, which we've been discussing about.
Oh, okay. Let me just open up
yes.
my thing on my end.
Okay, cool. Have you got your assignment open in front of you? Diwe, can you hear me? I think your connection's quite bad. Okay, cool. I think your connection's quite bad. Okay, guys. So again, as well, pending Chris's approval. I know you guys didn't want these classes to be too long. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a little bit of a break, so you guys can all go grab a drink, use the bathroom, whatever it is, and then we can come back just now. I don't know how people are going to stay, and then I'm going to log into Cole Campus. We're going to continue the discussion there and continue chatting here, and then I will go through anything. What would also be nice now is if you want to. So what some of the students and I did last week is they did some mock answers, and guys, this is a great opportunity for you to do this. Okay, so write down an answer to one of the questions. Okay, so what we said over here is discuss inertia and its sources in the context of MediaMark. Okay, so let's just go back to the slides over here. Let me just quickly put them onto presentation format again. Okay, so let's see over here. You could argue these are some of the causes of inertia. Guys, it could be strategy. It could be the company's in the wrong location. You can see over here, okay? So going back or going forward. Okay, so tangible physical buildings, plants, and machinery. Okay, so for example, is your building, are you in the wrong city? Are you based in Bloemfontein when you should be based in Joburg? Okay, are you based in Cape Town when you should be in, or are you not based in Cape Town? Because Cape Town's definitely on the rise. Okay, so should you be based in Cape Town and you're not based in Cape Town, as an example. Okay, so it could be the fact that you haven't responded to changes in innovation. It could be, okay, sometimes your organizational performance, your metrics, your pension plan, maybe you losing staff, really good staff because the pension plan is lousy. Okay, it could be shared beliefs and cultural assumptions. Okay, so maybe the organization, I don't think that that's the case in MediaMark's case. So unless you don't like commercial radio, I don't think that MediaMark's suffering from a problem with cultural assumptions. They've managed to pull together some quite disparate media. I mean, OFM, if it's still part of Kagiso Media, is based in Bloemfontein. So you've got a mixed bag over there, but there's still some, you know, some farmers and some quite rural people listening over there. Jacaranda pulls a very mixed audience of probably, you know, your older, higher LSM, well-established black markets, and then quite a bit of your white markets and colored and Indian markets. East Coast Radio pulls big portion of people from the Durban area, as I said to you guys, and I don't listen to them down here. We walk into a shopping center, you might hear them on the radio, but never listen to them. Okay, so you can see over there, I don't think that that would be an issue with MediaMark, but you can see what are some of the other areas. Have they failed to innovate in terms of intangible sources of inertia? I don't think so. Okay, then let's go back and have a look at these over here. Have they failed to be successful because of their own success? We spoke about that. Fly Safair was the example I gave you. Pick and Pay was the example I gave you. In some cases, organizations can be very successful and that can actually hamper them from remaining agile. They're not quick, they're not liquid in their thinking, and that affects their ability to you know, to innovate quickly, which is important these days with digital media. Okay, and then you can see over there, maybe it's the processes, maybe it's the systems, maybe it's the routines. Like I said to you guys at the beginning, if a company says, oh, this is the way we've always done things, it could be warning bells, unless it's a legacy company that's specifically focused on recreating elements of history on purpose. And there again, let's take it back to assignment 1, the first assignment, F1, the monarchy, the British royal family. Charles said, let's, you know, if Charles had decided he wanted to keep all the old systems in place and have, you know, just a traditional coronation like his mom had in 1953, he probably would have been lambasted in the media for being out of touch with the British people, and there would be a stronger move towards a republic. So let's get rid of the monarchy, let's make the UK a republic, Australia becomes a republic, New Zealand becomes a republic, etc., etc., etc. And now think of that over there and use that to contextualize it and take it back to MediaMark and back to the question. Cool. Okay, guys, are there any other questions? Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take a 15-minute break. I'll see you guys again at 3:20. I hope you guys will stay and interact with me on Cole Campus, on WhatsApp, and on Teams. But I will see you a little later if that works for you. Cool. Thanks so much. Chris, I don't know if you wanted to say anything.
No.
Okay, cool.
I think we're good. Go on the break, come back. All sounding good so far to me.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate your inputs.
Cool.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, guys. You know now.